Most people spend their lives trying to avoid death. Sir Adrian Carton de Wiart spent his life treating death like an annoying younger brother he occasionally had to put in a headlock. He was shot in the face, the head, the stomach, the ankle, the leg, the hip, and the ear. He survived a separate plane crash. He tunneled out of a high-security Italian POW camp at the age of 61, and when a doctor refused to amputate his shattered, gangrenous fingers, Adrian didn't argue. He simply bit them off and went back to work. By the time the smoke cleared from the most horrific century in human history, he looked back at the carnage of the Great War and said without a hint of irony, "Frankly, I enjoyed it. But how? How does a human being endure a lifetime of agony and call it fun?" Today, we aren't just listing his scars. We're digging into the psychology of the unkillable legend. Let's get the medical impossibility out of the way first. In 1901, during the Boer War, he was shot in the stomach and the groin. He survived. In 1915, at the Second Battle of Ypres, shrapnel shredded his left hand. He tore his own fingers off, and a surgeon later removed the hand entirely. In 1916, at the Somme, he was shot through the skull. He was back on the front lines in weeks. Later that year, he was shot through the ankle. In 1917, at Passchendaele, he was shot through the hip. In 1918, at Arras, he was shot through the leg. Finally, at Cambrai in 1918, he was shot through the ear. If life were a video game, Adrian Carton de Wiart was the guy using a cheat code for infinite health. But the physical damage is only half the story. The real question is, what kind of mind survives a bullet to the brain and asks, "Is that all you've got?" Adrian wasn't born a soldier. He was born an aristocrat. The son of a Belgian lawyer, he was supposed to be a man of books and boardrooms. But in 1899, the Boer War broke out, and Adrian felt appalled. He dropped out of Oxford, lied about his age, lied about his name, and ran toward the sound of the guns. This is where we find our first psychological clue. For Adrian, war wasn't a tragedy. It was a simplification. In civilian life, things are complicated. Finances, social standing, etiquette. In the mud of South Africa, life was reduced to a singular, pulsing objective: survival through aggression. When he was shot in the groin and stomach during that first war, most men would have taken the honorable discharge and gone home to a quiet life. Instead, Adrian became addicted. He realized he possessed a rare neurological trait: stress immunity. While others were paralyzed by the 1,000-yard stare, Adrian's heart rate seemingly leveled out the moment the artillery started. He didn't just tolerate the chaos, he felt right in it. By the time World War I ignited in 1914, Adrian was a captain. This wasn't a gentlemanly skirmishing of the Boer War. This was an industrial meat grinder. But look at his behavior at the Battle of the Somme. He was commanding the 8th Battalion of the Gloucestershire Regiment. His superior officers were killed. The line was breaking. Men were screaming, drowning in mud and blood. Adrian didn't hide in a bunker. He went over the top, waving his walking stick, pulling the pins out of grenades with his teeth, because he only had one hand left to throw them. Psychologists call this the flow state. Most of us find it in painting, coding, or sports. Adrian found it in the middle of a barrage. When he said he enjoyed the war, he wasn't being a psychopath. He didn't enjoy the suffering. He enjoyed the clarity. In the trenches, there was no past and no future. There was only the absolute, vibrating present. His men didn't follow him because he was a tactical genius. They followed him because he was a psychological anchor. If the man with one eye and one hand wasn't scared, how could they be? Fast forward to 1941, World War II. Adrian is now 61 years old. His plane is shot down over the Mediterranean. He swims a mile to shore, only to be captured by the Italians. Now, imagine you're a 61-year-old amputee with dozens of old wounds aching in the damp air of a prison cell. Most would wait for a diplomatic swap. Not Adrian. He spent 7 months digging a tunnel through solid rock. He had one hand. Let that sink in. He was digging through stone and dirt, one-handed, alongside younger men. He escaped and spent 8 days on the run in the Italian countryside, disguised as a peasant. He didn't speak Italian. He was 6 feet tall, had an eye patch, and was missing a hand. He was the least inconspicuous person in history. He was eventually recaptured, but the message was clear. Adrian Carton de Wiart could not be contained by walls or by biology. His spirit was entirely decoupled from his physical state. Sir Adrian eventually retired, having served as Winston Churchill's personal representative to China and surviving yet another plane crash on his way home. But his story leaves us with a haunting question. Why don't we see men like this in modern warfare? The answer isn't that we've grown soft. It's that war has changed. Modern combat is a game of sensors, drones, and over-the-horizon missiles. It is clinical. It is detached. Adrian's superpower was his physical presence, his ability to stand in a hail of bullets and radiate a calm that suppressed the fear of everyone around him. In a world of drone strikes, that kind of bravery is almost obsolete. Adrian was a throwback. He was a Viking born 1,000 years too late, a knight-errant in a world of mustard gas. He represented the peak of stoic resilience, the idea that while you cannot control what happens to your body, you are the absolute master of your reaction to it. He wasn't a man who loved killing. He was a man who loved the feeling of being truly, dangerously alive. He reminds us that the human spirit is a far more durable piece of equipment than the human body. Adrian once wrote, "Governments may think and say as they like, but force cannot be eliminated, and it is the only real and unanswerable power." Whether you find him inspiring or terrifying, one thing is certain, they will never make another one like him.